to the book launch of Spyridium and the Wilderness Custodians of Crawford. This is a really special event for us because it is really a culmination of a lot of work from some really special people. In particular, the woman that won't even sit in the front row, she likes to not be acknowledged, very special Sally Knowles. Lauren Walker, our head of outdoor education, who is in the front row, good to see, and Simone Gorman, our head of science, who has joined us on stage. And the work that has gone into this, the book, but the work that went on before this, has been incredibly meaningful. So Crawford is our outdoor education campus over in the Coorong, which we all know is a very special part of the world. And Crawford is a special place for us because our girls from Year 5 start to use it as a campsite. And our Year 9s in particular go over for 3 weeks and live independently with some support a lot of support from our outdoor education staff. So the place in the outdoor education program is incredibly important. The educational impact on the girls cannot be underestimated. And I personally, as I was head of middle school for many years, loved to count the girls that walk across the stage on speech night that say what was the most significant impact on you at Wilderness, and so many of the girls they realise for a whole range of reasons. So the impact on the girls is huge. The environmental significance of what Dr. Knox and our science department have managed to achieve in making sure that we bring Spyridium back, and Sally will always underestimate what they're doing, we are so proud of. But really importantly, it's not just the work of the school, of our girls and our staff, but the connections that we have with the local community over on the Coorong, and also with the industry partners in the science world. So I'm very pleased to welcome all of you so that we can take some time to acknowledge the work that has happened. I'm not going to be up here for very long. I'm here also to introduce our moderator for this evening. Professor Paul Babby is the Benithan Chair in Law and Professor of Law at the Adelaide Law School at the University of Adelaide. He's currently Associate Dean of Law and International Development and Director of the Research Unit for the Study of Society, Ethics and the Law. He's also the Chair of the ATF Board, publishers of the book, and he is an expert in property law, property theory, the history of real property law, and the law and theology. So can you please join me in welcoming Professor Babby.
Thank you to Hillary and Sally for inviting me to moderate this event. I'm extremely excited to be here to do that. Spyridium and the Wilderness, the Custodians of Crawford, is really quite a fascinating and amazing book. It's a collection of essays and vignettes about Crawford, which some of you will know is a special part of South Australia, a place of environmental stewardship and transformative education. It's near Salt Creek on the Coorong, and it's in a landscape which is rich with history, and it has enormous cultural significance, a place of internationally recognized ecological diversity. It's also, importantly for many of those who gather tonight, a haven for education and conservation. The book makes an invaluable contribution to our understanding not only of that very special part of South Australia, which is significant enough, of course, in its own right, but in addition to that, it makes an extremely important contribution to our understanding of the environment in which we live, and the importance of the obligation which we all have to be stewards of our common home, a home which we share with the animals, plants, and everyone else on this planet. We can all learn from what the students that we find in this book about Crawford and the way in which they model the protection of rare and endangered plant species and the importance of conservation, the ethics of looking after the environment, and the joy of experiencing the world outside for them, the classroom, and for all of us, the built world in which we increasingly spend so much of our time. We owe these students a debt of gratitude for what they have shown us, and in some ways that is perhaps what most shone through in this book for me, and that is the power of youth to show us what we really need to know and to tell us how we need to act. And so it's my very great honor and pleasure to be here tonight in order to moderate this launch. And so with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Dr. David Payton, who's one of the authors of one of the chapters in the book. David Payton is a respected ecologist, ornithologist, academic, and author with a passion for conservation and restoration and a strong commitment to long-term studies that help understand and manage the natural environment for future generations. He completed a BSc with honors at the University of Adelaide and a PhD at Monash University, and he's received the SA Great Award for the Environment in 1999, the Premier Science Excellence Award for Excellence in Research for Public Good Outcomes in 2006, a National Carrot Citation for Environmental Education in 2006, and was appointed a member in the General Division of the Board of Australia for Service to Conservation, Education, and the Environment in 2008. His work on the Coorong and declining woodland birds is well known, and he holds an adjunct associate professorship at the University of Adelaide, where he taught for over 20 years. He co-founded the nonprofit organizations Arid Recovery and BioR, the latter of which he is currently managing director. So please join me in welcoming Dr. David.
What I wish to do today is to give you a broader context in which to put this book's Spyridium in the wilderness. There is a global biodiversity crisis. That crisis is driven entirely by us and the way we use resources and continue to use resources. So much so that a year or so ago, the United Nations actually called on all peoples, all jurisdictions of the world to set aside 30% of all land types, 30% of all oceans, 30% of all freshwater sources for biodiversity. Australia is one of 195 countries that signed up to that. The scheme is collectively known as the 30 by 30, and that's because these countries signed up to deliver this 30% of everything by 2030. They're very good at actually forming a nice cash cry, but when it comes to delivery, the next items, we don't need to be that way, and we actually have to change the way we operate. Because your and my and future people's health and well-being depends on delivering that. As is the health and well-being of this planet. It depends on us delivering on that pledge. If there are any clear landscapes in which we live, that's a very hard task. Because here, 10% of the vegetation is being cleared, and hit that 30% by 2030 is impossible. The realistic thing is in 100 years' time. Just to put back the habitat to get to 30%, habitat takes 100 years to mature. 2130 is probably the date that I should be looking at. It's a 100-year timeline, not the unrealistic 5 to 6 year timeline that politicians happily sign us up to without really appreciating what's involved. Almost in concert with that request for people to do these things, the United Nations declared this decade, the 2020s, in which we're all living, as the decade for ecosystem restoration. We've nearly got to the halfway mark in that decade. I don't see any substantial restoration of landscapes anywhere. In fact, we continue to clear habitat at a rate that is faster than we put anything back. And lots of developers will actually say, oh, don't worry about Dr. Payton. We fund and we set aside areas, ecological offsets of the areas that we clear. Let me tell you from an experienced person's perspective, there is no such thing as an ecological offset. You clear away the habitat, you say you're going to do an offset, the vegetation of the offset matures in 100 years' time, but the organisms that lived in that place that was cleared are left without a home for 100 years. By the time their habitats are ready for they are long gone. And that's the primary reason we have a biodiversity crisis on our doorsteps. One of the great dilemmas with all of this is that we continue to live our lives oblivious to these problems. And the reason we fail to live sustainably in the true sense of that word is that we don't appreciate what we need to do to make a difference going forward. Those species will continue to decline, and rapidly so, because of our past efforts and because of our inability to act. I want to just unpack this United Nations plea for people who actually go about setting aside 30% and ask 3 simple questions about that. Why should we do this? We hear whispers in the corridor suggesting. And perhaps the corollary of this is, why aren't we doing something about this? And the third question, how should we tackle this? Protecting and enhancing our biodiversity is critically important. I want to not illustrate this, but continually point this out. Critically important for our well-being, critically important for the lifestyles we have. They're going to determine where we can live and how we live in the future. Really important for health, particularly mental health. We're only just starting to appreciate that. And ultimately, and this is the one which most people don't get, it is absolutely critical to long-term economic prosperity. Few of us appreciate all of that because we now live in cities, divorced from nature. In those cities, the things that support us are largely hard to see. The natural things that support us are hard to see. We have all this infrastructure, and increasingly, we are all dependent on these various bits of technology that make supposedly our lives more fulfilling and rich. I question that. So, if we are to change this, where do we start? And what do we need to do? Well, the very first part is solving this dilemma which all peoples of the world experience. Because we need to reconnect people to nature. And I want to now just come to this actual book and its launch and what it actually means in terms of doing that. Because we have to change the way we live our lives. We've been remarkably poor at doing it. Generation after generation of us have exploited the environment and simply said, we're going to pass that on to the next generation. In fact, it's worse than that because I would have said, and I've always wanted to say this in a prestigious school, the attitude of my generation or those before us has been this, bugger the next generation. But what we are doing is continually passing on the environmental cost to the next generation. We have to put a stop to that. We need to put a stop to that now. And what Willis is doing through their engagement at Crawford is exactly that. It is this ability to start connecting people. Now, I teach lots of people about these things and we get them engaged and for them it's the first time it's an engagement with nature and then somehow they get engaged with nature and then they come to this feeling of despair. This juggernaut that is us is almost impossible to turn around. And if you don't turn around, it will just continue to deteriorate, and life will get worse and worse. I am one of those lucky people who lived in a generation which without a doubt were the best of times. And I apologise for all those younger than me, and I commiserate with those my generation was right to do something which happened. The despair then has to be addressed with some hope of actually being able to make a difference. And that requires one connecting to nature. And that's exactly what this book is about. It's the exemplar, what one should be doing. Provide opportunities for young people to engage with nature. Not in the formal setting of classrooms, on desks, or with computer screens, but in a natural setting. Not in the sense of formally telling them what they should be doing, but letting them just start the joy of protecting a plant species. But from my perspective, improving the conservation outcomes for a rare plant, as great as they might be, is not the feat that is celebrated today. Rather, we should be celebrating the school and the teachers who had that vision to drive, to deliver this, and they have delivered in spades. Well done, all of you. This book, however, is just a chapter in the evolution and development of a broader experiential educational program. And I don't need to demean the quality of the book, it is but a chapter. The challenge now is to take that chapter to the next level, re-establish a system of human endeavour that has nature at its core, where we truly live sustainably. And to use an old quote and just reiterate it, we just have to do it.
Who is a biology and science teacher with a research background in marine toxicology. She currently, in her current role, engenders a love of science in students attending this wilderness school, and she's a dedicated role model for those students wishing to pursue the sciences, having worked in the field both in Australia and abroad. And she's also one of the chapter authors in this book. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Simone Bruce-Park-Gorman.
Good afternoon, everybody. Realise, as you know, occupies a central position in our educational landscape, and it serves as the pinnacle experience for our young girls. And it's within this program that our young women have the unique opportunity to immerse themselves in this world of science within nature that Dr. Hayden was just talking about. Collecting data for two primary jobs is really important for our girls. They employ time and seeds, and also working with David, listening and tracking the migration patterns of waterbirds in this very special landscape. Our approach has always been about not making sure that our girls just do busy science work. And we want them to be able to learn that scientific concepts are authentic when they're contributing, and they're contributing to real-world projects in South Australia. They plant trees, they harvest seeds, they germinate, they bird band. And we firmly believe that it's through these really immersive experiences that our girls forge really powerful connections with science that can propel them towards a rich and fulfilling career. After all, it's stories that bind us, and for all people, but I think particularly girls, it's the narratives that they hold true about how science looks and how it feels that enables them to imagine themselves in such rich and fulfilling futures. To that end, we've made it our mission to ensure that wilderness women are exposed to the science of life so that they develop these poignant connections to life science. A testament to the power of first-hand experience are the plethora of girls that surround us, that, and particularly for Eloise, that has just left our school, that first-hand experience is giving her an avenue into where life could take her in science. Importantly, the pedagogical decisions that drive Lily science, during my watch at least, have been based on philosophies of engagement and reflective practice. Our guiding questions are revolved around fostering deep thinking, inspiring a genuine passion for science, and ensuring that our girls have a voice in this space. We rarely confine them by saying no, and we wonder how to ignite their imagination so that they fall in love with science. As a faculty, we poignantly believe that the most significant charge of our profession is to eliminate the path for girls in science, bestowing them ample opportunities for genuine engagement. To accomplish this, we provide our girls with a curriculum that allows them to spend time in the wilderness. Science at wilderness encompasses both educational learning in a classroom, but this very, very important immersive experiential space, prompting not only knowledge acquisition, but to know how it feels to play and learn and reflect in nature. In that curriculum not only outlines what we cover, but also emphasizes what we hold back. A testament to the breadth of our commitment to nurturing girls in education is what we do at Realise. Triple I is designed to make a substantial difference. We have had several girls work with Gorman, a women's apparel brand, and they designed Valley Flower socks. They raised over $20,000 for sales through Gorman, and gave that money back to Bushcare Heritage Australia. It's fair to say that Realise leaves a profound and visceral impact on the lives of our girls through their academic and personal journeys. The opportunity to see, to feel, to touch and to learn in this immersive environment cannot be underestimated. It results in deep-seated learning that girls cherish and remember. They may not always remember what we teach them, but they will always remember how it felt. Seeds is a wonderful example of how an idea inspired by a phone call to the Adelaide Botanic Gardens has resulted in bringing back a species from their extinction. It's at this juncture I wish to acknowledge the very humble and dedicated work of Dr. Sally Knowles, our much beloved chemistry teacher, who refused to stand up here tonight and instead made me do it. A couple of years ago, I had an idea. I wanted girls to develop a deep connection with the landscape by planting trees. I wanted them to feel the soil. I wanted them to get dusty, and I wanted them to get muddy. Because lots of our girls have never planted a tree. Knowing that they would make a direct connection to country, it was actually based on a memory of my own. When I was in year 2, I planted a tree with a boy called Darian Flackerel. I remember the tree and Darian. More impressed by the tree, less impressed by Darian. I don't know what he does anymore, but anyway, I do remember that tree, and I remember how very, very proud I was that I planted a tree all by myself. And I hope that that tree is still alive. And I have a very blurry memory of where the tree was because I was just 6. But particularly thinking that this tree had made such a lasting impression on me as a 6-year-old. And I quote that singular moment as what it is to be a biologist for myself today. I contacted the education officer then, Michael Girl, and asked if we could do something together. And he said, look, I think we need to meet up because I've got a project I'm about to go to the ground and I think you might be interested. So Michael popped over to Wilderness and he explained that we have 3 botanists in the state, we've got a couple just sitting here tonight, and they're not able to get around and do the things they need to do by themselves. And that he had this idea that if we entrusted this green gold to some students, that maybe they could help us bring back some of these rare plants to the wilderness. And so the Gardens gifted us with 100 Spyridium seeds, which represented, I think I'm right down, half of the collection, thereabouts. And through Sunny's work, we have returned many more seeds to the ground. We have a seed nursery. We are putting them back into the ground at Crawford. As a pod, I knew that this work was something that I could not do on my own, and so I wrote Sunny. And she has taken this to a place that I could never have imagined. I'm incredibly proud. Whilst her husband was in critical care, she plowed away and she won a federal grant for $150,000, whilst also spending all of her time teaching chemistry. She single-handedly has developed exclusion zones at Crawford to replant. She's worked with families, with teachers and with girls to enthuse them. She's carved out a space near the boarding house for our seed orchard, and she continues to experiment with different germination models. The most recent she shared with me last week. She has looked at agar and petri dishes at certain temperatures in the little fridge that we've got in science. She's pretty proud, you know, what little fella. So little was known about the germination and fertilisation relationship between Spyridium and insects before we started. Was there an ant? Was there a skipper butterfly interaction? Was it about water? Was it about soil? What was it? Since we've had this seed orchard, we've noticed that we have a lot of Drosophila flies up all over the top, so maybe there's a connection. We have so much more to learn now because of her work. But what we've done is to build an enormous collection of seeds and plants in the order of thousands. And we have well and truly ensured that Spyridium will live on for another 100 years, I hope. Can we please join our hands to congratulate Sally for her story with more endemic species and work on developing this revegetation project that Dr. David Clayton so passionately spoke about. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Simone. I'm going to introduce, we have two authors of vignettes from the book. And the first of those authors is Inika Weber, who was a student here at Wilderness from 2018 to 2022. And she's now studying renewable energy engineering as a co-op scholar at the University of New South Wales. So please join me in welcoming Inika Weber.
Hi everyone. As has been mentioned, I'm Inika and I graduated from Woody in 2022 and I'm now studying renewable energy engineering at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. And in my second year, I'm currently undertaking a placement with an international renewables company called Neon. I've always been passionate about the environment and was part of the Youth Environment Council for South Australia from 2017 to 2021, where it forced me to partake in projects in my community or school that had something to do with the environment, and one of these, which I was really lucky to take part of, was the Spyridium project with Dr. Knobs. So during this time, I set up the Environment Committee as part of the middle school SRC for both the middle and senior school with my fellow middle school SRC representative, Sub Pullman. And we had the opportunity to work on the Spyridium project for a few years during my time in the senior school. So we were able to help sort the seed heads, collect the seeds, and pollinate the bushes by hand since we didn't know the pollinator. There was only very few Spyridium left in the wild when we began this project, so it was incredible when we were able to have had around 100 seeds germinate in the first batch of planting them, and to repeat this process with similar success. So we were able to plant these back at Crawford campus with the help of the exclusion zones, have them survive, and having more in Salt Creek really puts them back in the environment that they're supposed to be in, whereas Wilderness is a lot further away from the area that they're endemic to. So in year 11, I went back to Crawford as part of my poetry cadet, and we put some unsorted seeds and crushed seed heads in boiling water and planted them next to the teacher's cabin, and I hope that they're still growing there. And to get the entire community involved, we made packets of seeds for the students, parents, and friends of the Woody community to take home and plant for themselves, separating the seeds into individual packets and allowing everyone to take part of this project that we so passionately enjoyed ourselves. So there was also a group of us that were able to be a part of the ABCs Behind the News segment, which we're all very excited about, having been something that we enjoyed watching ourselves in primary school, and we're able to participate in ourselves through being part of this project. Overall, from a student perspective, it's been an incredibly rewarding experience to feel like we were able to make a difference to the world that we live in, and it was really fun to spend time with friends doing something so meaningful. Especially amongst all the other stresses that come in the senior school, it was important to have an extracurricular which was fun and relaxing and able to make a profound impact on our planet. It's so impressive that this book has been published, and I would like to give a big shout out to Dr. Knobs, Ms. Gorman, Ms. Walker, Ms. Onfield, and everyone else that made a difference and able to make this dream a reality, and I'm honoured to have been a part of it. Thank you.
And our second vignette author is Eloise Roster, who's currently completing year 12 here at Wilderness. And she's been involved in the Wilderness School Environment Club since its inception in 2018. And she's been in Crawford as part of her Gold Duke Edinburgh residential camp. And she's also participated in both Crawford planting festivals. So please welcome Eloise Roster.
Thanks for the introduction. As you said, my name's Eloise and I've just finished year 12 here at Wilderness. I've been involved in the project since it started in 2018. However, my involvement increased in 2021 when I became the co-leader of the Environment Club, which Inika started earlier on. I built on Inika's experiences and they match my own quite similarly because we've done similar things, and yeah. I vividly remember in 2021 when I first started to go down to the school's garden, just collect the flower heads and take them back to the of the classroom to start the seed sorting process. During our lunchtime sessions, which were held once a week and sometimes even more frequently, the Environment Club girls, Dr. Nobbs and I would have a blast sorting the seeds from the flower heads, which would ground through a series of sieves, whilst chatting and listening to the BGs. Some of these seeds, which we had handpicked and sorted through our lunchtime sessions, have now grown into the seedlings that we planted at Crawford and the various festivals, along with the exclusion zones along the Coorong. It's so nice to know that my peers and I contributed to this project and that we're present throughout the whole lives of some of these plants. Of course, this couldn't have been done without Dr. Nobbs and all the behind-the-scenes work that I probably didn't appreciate at the time. I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and passion you've put into this project, and it's really inspiring, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. I've had the wonderful opportunity to attend both planting weekends held on the long weekend of June, and often on my birthday as well, so yeah. I undertook the residential project like Inika as well as part of the Duke of Edinburgh Award. It was a really enriching experience and gave me something to think about, which I've held on to, and thinking about going into environmental studies in my future. So the things that wilderness offers really does make a difference, as you said, and yeah. So as the name suggests, at the plantings festivals, we planted the seeds and helped introduce them back into the population. This really furthered my love for nature and being a part of this project. Which gives back to the community of Wilby's second home, the Coorong. Throughout these opportunities, I have had a great time and know that the project can only go further with the help of Dr. Nobbs and everyone here. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Eloise. And now I'd like to introduce the last of our speakers for launching the book, and that's Dr. Dan Rogers, who currently works in the Office of Threatened Species, the Office of the Threatened Species Commissioner in the Australian Department for Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water. And prior to that role, he spent over 15 years in the South Australian Department for Environment and Water, and another 10 years as a researcher at several universities in Australia and overseas. And he spent his career developing partnerships between government, researchers, and the community to create innovative and effective solutions to the challenges of threatened species conservation. He's worked across temperate and arid ecosystems and across terrestrial, aquatic, and marine environments. Dan has a long and powerful connection to the Coorong wetlands, and so please welcome Dr. Dan Rogers.
Thank you very much for having me today. I'm really quite grateful to be here to talk about what's really quite an inspiring project. I'm here representing Dr. Fiona Fraser, the Australia's Threatened Species Commissioner, who unfortunately wasn't able to make it to this event. I caught up with her earlier this week actually, and she was really excited to be part of this launch and be part of the story that we're telling today. Fiona does send her congratulations and says she can't wait to read the book, so I'll make sure she gets a hold of this and make sure that she spreads the news to her colleagues in Canberra and across the country that she's going to visit other projects across the country. I thought I'd start off by just acknowledging that we're Wangara country today and acknowledge traditional owners of this country, and I also want to make sure that we acknowledge the traditional owners of the country from which we're talking about this plant, the Nurrungiri people in the southeast of South Australia. And just to also acknowledge that these plants and animals we talk about when we talk about threatened species, they're not just items on this that Australian government look at to see what's most threatened. These species are actually important to community and important to First Nations. And we need to continue to remember that these are important parts of our collective natural heritage, particularly the heritage of the Aboriginal people of this country. Now, with Spyridium, normally when we do threatened species work in this country, particularly through the Threatened Species Commissioner's Office, we often most talk about, and we often most get talked to about, mammals and reptiles and birds and all these really highly charismatic things that people have a really strong connection with on a day-to-day basis. So it's really exciting to be coming and talking about this spring plant, which not many people across the country would have heard of, but which has that equal importance to all those things that most people tend to think about when they think about threatened species. They're just as important to our landscapes and to, again, to the connection, to our connection to the country and to our natural heritage, as black cockatoos and as bilbies and as numbats and all these things that people tend to think about. Plants are also really disproportionately represented in species that are threatened in this country. Over 1,400 species of plant are represented on the National List of Threatened Species under the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act in this country, which is an enormous list, a shameful list to be quite honest with you. And in the Threatened Species Commissioner's Office, we're going through a process, we have gone through a process where we're trying to identify those species that are most at risk of extinction, most at risk of imminent extinction, that we really need to act on now. And the Spyridium is just one of those species that we picked. This special plant was prioritised because it clearly faced, and I'll say faced, because I'll get to that, a high risk of extinction with only a very small number of plants in the wild at a single location, so really high risk of imminent extinction. It was also identified because there were good prospects of recovery, that we could actually identify action. We, the community, the people involved, the people passionate about this, could identify actual actions that you could do to do something about this plant and go through the process. And then there were people who are passionate enough to get together and work together in partnership to actually do something about it. So thanks to the hard and sustained work of Wilderness School especially, in collaboration with South Australian Sea Conservation Centre and Botanic Gardens and others, we've taken this plant, you've taken this plant from a species which is absolutely at imminent risk of extinction to one that is now on the road to recovery. And I absolutely congratulate you for that. I can't speak highly enough of what you've done for the threatened species in this country generally. I'll just go off script, and I'll do this a few times. In the last couple of weeks, probably last week in fact, a bird which many of you may not have heard of, slender-billed curlew, was officially declared extinct in the world this week. No longer exists. This is a species that migrated between Europe and Africa for millions of years, and now it's gone. And that's European and African species, but we're not immune in this country. Species like the Bramble-key lioness, a small mouse that used to live in Queensland, has gone extinct for the last 10 years. The Christmas Island minstrel, another species, a small bat species that did live on Christmas Island, went extinct. These are things that no longer exist. And the Spyridium could have been that. Could have been that loss from our spirit in this country. And thanks to the efforts of all of you, it's no longer on that trajectory. It's no longer at the same risk of extinction as it once was. So I absolutely agree with Dave on a number of fronts, most notably the fact that the broader task of reversing environmental and biodiversity damage in the world and in this country is a monumental task for all of us. But those little wins, those individual species that you turned around from something which we could have lost forever to something we haven't, is something to be celebrated and congratulated. So I'm grateful to you all for what you've done there. To continue to go off script, as mentioned, I have a really strong and long personal connection to this country. And I'm looking at the slides in the background now, I can feel my sort of heart stirring just looking at these images from my own long personal experience in this place. And I've got this bloke here sitting in the road to absolutely thank for that. He was the one who introduced me to this place in the mid-90s, and I've never looked back. And just some of the experiences of spending time on country through a whole range of different hacks, I guess, walking k's and k's of shoreline, or sitting for hours and hours in the sun, the wind and the rain, counting birds on the shorelines, travelling in boats through tens of thousands of band of stilts, just lifting up the water in front of us. Just being in a landscape that, you just spend time in landscape and it gets under your skin and in your heart, and what it does, it demands care from you. It keeps drawing you back and it asks, what can you do for it? You have this connection with the place that means you feel you always have to be doing something for it. My point about, talking about the connection is exactly what some of the other speakers have talked to, is that I'm absolutely grateful for the work you've done around the Spyridium and preventing extinction, as I pointed out. But there's a massive legacy in this project, and it's expressed through this book, but it's expressed well beyond this book, around connecting people and protecting young people and young women in particular to place and to natural places. And so I don't hope, I expect that all the young women who are involved in this project and everyone else involved in this project will have such a deep connection to this place that they will also feel that expectation to continue to care for that country. Now, that doesn't mean that they'll all become scientists or environmental managers or, heaven forbid, public servants. But even though they're all pretty good careers, but they'll become advocates and they'll become gardeners and they'll do all those things that you do in daily life, no matter what vocation you end up living in. That will matter. That will make a difference to themselves and to the community that they involve themselves in. So again, I can't express enough the gratitude and the power in the connection that the school and all the partners given to the young women who've been involved in this project and will continue to be involved in that part of the world in years to come. So I'll finish up and just say again, thank you so much on behalf of Dr. Fiona Fraser for Species Commissioner and on behalf of myself for the book, for the expression of this project through the book, for your efforts, your tireless efforts to conserve this species, which now is on the way to recovery. It's not on the way to extinction, as we said. And just for leaving that much broader legacy to the community and to the people involved that will have a lasting legacy well beyond the life of this project. So thank you very much for that.
That brings us to perhaps the most important person on the night, and that is the person who published the book. So I'm delighted to introduce Mr. Hillary Regan, who's the CEO of ATF Press. He's been in that role for 30 years. Many of you know him in that role and in other roles. During that time, he's published well over 500 books, covering a range of subjects and topics, all of which are in print and e-publication format, and are distributed locally and internationally. So Hillary, thanks very much.
Thank you all. First, I'd like to say we had about 10 apologies for this evening, the people who couldn't come, some at last minute because of the heat. ATF, as Paul said, has been going for about 30 years. And book launches are a time of thanks, closure and celebration. And tonight we have an incredibly diverse group of people and a very big number of people here, and that's a great thing. I'd like to acknowledge that Paul is one of our, as a chair of our board, and there were some other board members who were going to be here who hadn't been able to attend. Also, I'd like to acknowledge the chair of the ATF Literary Trust, Mark O'Brien, who's here this evening. So, thanks also to the school for this being a co-publication. And thank you for the lovely catering we have and for the girls that assisted in various ways, both with some music and helping out there. Thanks to the editors and the authors who did much hard work over many months. Thanks to the speakers who've spoken tonight. And we should have mentioned, of course, that David has two ladies now who went to this school over time. Thank you to Dr. Knopps, who's the main element of this book. I understand that she wrote the application, as Simone spoke about, during the time when her husband was in hospital for an extended period of time following back surgery. She has nurtured the whole project and suggested various ways how we could put the book together. When I heard about the book and when I heard about the project, I suggested to her that we should do a publication outlining the process, outlining the whole venture. And so she went to the government department and thankfully they agreed, as Dan said, about the importance of actually writing up this project. I don't know whether there's been many other endangered species where the project has been written up in a similar way. Thanks for that. So So it's been a complex book. There's been so many different contributors. There's about 40 people who have been involved in this. And to put it together has been no easy task, and so I acknowledge the editors, in particular Sally, for the work. And it is a remarkable book and quite a unique book, as Dan has said, because it has been a group of girls who have been working together to rejuvenate a near extinct plant. So, congratulations to all of the people involved. The books are outside for sale, and both hardback, softcover. There's also a copy of some copies of David's book on the Coorong, which was published a number of years ago, and was launched here at Wilby. So it's been a great event, and thank you. Save some nibbles and some drinks, buy the books, and over there near the door, the three editors will be happy to sign copies. So thank you all. Are there questions that people would want to put to any of the authors, editors?
I'm not sure if there are any questions, or if you want to speak to our speakers in a more informal way once we've wrapped up, you might do it that way. I just wanted to say finally thank you obviously to our speakers and say congratulations to the authors, but of course congratulations especially to the editors, those who brought this project together, Simone Burskott-Gorman, Lauren Walker, and of course, as we've heard about her central role in the project and the book, Dr. Sally Knob. So congratulations to all of them on what is an outstanding book. I think sometimes at a launch, someone would say something along the lines of, I commend the book to you. It is now launched. Please do buy a copy, and I hope you find it as enriching and as valuable as I found it. So thank you very much, and have a good evening.